Listening at home, tuning in online, or joining us here in person at the Queen's Hall in Narberth. We're pleased to welcome this attendance this evening, along with the candidates who have given their time to be here and take part in this important democratic discussion ahead of polling day next week. Only 7 days to go. Before we begin, I'd like to make a brief declaration of interest. One of the candidates taking part in this evening's hustings is a director of Pure West Radio. That is Labour's candidate Mark Tierney, based on his extreme knowledge and experience in broadcast. However, I want to make it clear to our listeners and to the audience that we are committed to ensuring a fair, balanced and impartial discussion for all of the candidates. The election taking place on the 7th of May will be conducted under a new voting system for the Senedd. Voters will now be electing representatives using a system designed to produce more proportional results. Wales has been divided into larger constituencies with multiple members elected in each area rather than just one. On the ballot paper, voters will choose a political party or an individual independent candidate. Seats in each constituency will then be allocated based on the share of the vote each party or candidate receives. This means that the number of representatives elected should more closely reflect how people have voted overall. The aim of this system is to ensure broader and give voters a stronger link between their vote and the outcome. It also means that every vote carries weight in determining who represents your area in the Senedd. And tonight's discussion is an opportunity to hear directly from some of those standings for election about their priorities, their policies, and their vision for the future of Wales. Sat alongside me, in no particular order, I've got Plaid Cymru candidate Anna Nicol, Reform Michael Timothy Allen, Labour Mark Tierney, Green Party Morgan Phillips, Conservatives Samuel Kurtz, Liberal Democrats Alastair Cameron, Gwlad Gwyn Evans, Heritage Party, we were supposed to be joined by Jason Barker but was unable to make it. Independent candidates include Paul Hayward-Dowson, who also is not in attendance today but has provided a statement, independent candidate Aaron Carey, and independent candidate George Chadsey. Thank you so much for your time in making the effort down here this evening. Heritage Party, Jason Barker, we're trying to send a substitute in Jason's place, but I have not heard anything from them. So I want to declare that they were invited. He has a placard made. He was due to be here, but was unable to make it. Paul Hayward-Dowson, unable to make it this evening due to work commitments, but has provided a statement. So I'm going to start by reading that out before we hear from the candidates alongside us. I'll then go through the format of the rest of the evening. So Paul Hayward-Dowson, thank you for joining us. Let's begin. That's me. Good evening, and thank you for allowing me to address you, even though I cannot be there in person. My name is Paul Hayward-Dowson. I'm an independent candidate for the Ceredigion Penfro, former county councillor, and most importantly, someone born and raised in this constituency. I am not a career politician. I entered public life because I became tired of watching poor decisions, empty promises, and political loyalty to parties taking priority over the people those politicians were elected to represent. During my time as a county councillor, I built a proven track record of taking on the major issues others avoided. I challenged the mismanagement of our local health board when millions were being overspent while vital services were placed at risk. I stood against plans that threatened Pembroke Dock, including a refuse site for waste from outside our area and a fuel tanker depot in the heart of the community. I tackled rogue landlords, antisocial behaviour and local decline directly because I believe representation means action, not simply attendance. I am standing for the Senedd because Ceredigion Penfro deserves strong, honest representation that answers to the electorate, not to party whips or political fashion. My priorities are clear. First, I will fight for proper accountability in public spending with Welsh communities, Welsh infrastructure and Welsh public services coming first. Second, I will stand up for our farmers and rural economy, pushing back against restrictive policies that create hardship while ignoring the realities faced by those who feed our nation. And third, I will demand better for our roads, our local healthcare, and our communities, because neglect should never be accepted as normal. And honour. I do not pretend to be perfect, and I do not pretend to be something I am not. What I offer is a proven willingness to take action, challenge the establishment when necessary, and put this constituency first. Too many people have voted, hoped, and been forgotten, and if elected, my loyalty will not be to party politics, it will be to you. Thank you, Paul Hayward-Dowson. So that's the statement from the independent candidate, Paul Hayward-Dowson. But we're here to hear from the people that have made the time to answer your questions. We put posts out on social media to hear directly from you, the constituents of Ceredigion Penfro, and these have been synthesized into 4 main topics, which we will get to in due course. The format of the rest of the evening is each candidate is going to have the opportunity to have an opening statement. Each question will be asked in order, and every candidate will then have 2 minutes to respond. And I will be a stickler to the 2 minutes because the jazz box is on at 9 o'clock, and I know you don't want to miss it. After the 4 questions have been answered, each candidate here around the table will then have 1 minute to answer the question, why should we vote for them or their party? So that's how this show is going to run this evening. So with that, I have randomly allocated the order in which the opening statements will take place. I randomly allocated the answers in which the answers will be answered to. And it's coming up to already 10 minutes past 7 o'clock. You've heard enough of me already on this Pure Politics Senedd Hustings special on Pure West Radio. So we're going to move to opening remarks. And we're going to start with Gwilard and Gwyn Evans.
Diolch am y cyfle, and thank you for the invitation to come to the Hustings. We're not always invited. I'm Gwyn Wigley-Evans, I'm leader of Gwlad, and I'm a county councillor in Llanrhystud in Ceredigion. It is time for change. Careful what you wish for. Is a lab Plaid or Plaid lab any different? Need fresh thinking, I think, and real change in direction, which Gwlad offers. We're exporting young people. The economy needs serious injection. Good permanent jobs that pay well, other countries do it. And Mid Wales is going to be have pylons and wind farms, 1,000 of them across the country, exporting electricity. We don't want that. Agriculture gives us food security. You can't eat trees. Treasure it, and we need clean water. London does not give a fair share of the funds. Senedd does not spend it wisely. Wales can be better. It should be. Gwlad is not left or right, but are doing what is right for Wales. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you very much. Second, Plaid Cymru, Anna Nicol.
Thank you. So with just 1 week left to change Wales for good, there's now a stark choice between 2 very different futures. Only Plaid Cymru can bring new leadership for Wales that offers hope, with a clear vision and a credible plan to put Wales on a new path towards fairness and prosperity. Plaid Cymru will stand up for Wales, challenging Westminster to give Wales its fair share. All your local candidates constituency and use the same services as you, and we'll be standing up for West Wales. Plaid Cymru has a detailed plan to cut waiting times and build a health and care service fit for the future. Our absolute priority here is protecting Withybush and local health services. We have a plan to help families through the cost of living crisis, to grow the economy and create good jobs, and to give every child the best start in life. This election is now a straight fight between Plaid Cymru and Reform. So if you believe in Wales, value the NHS, and want to keep the country free of Trumpian politics, please back Plaid Cymru.
Thank you very much, Anna Nicol. Independent George Chadsey.
Hi guys, yes, for those of you that don't know me, I'm George, I'm an independent candidate from Newcastle Emlyn. So a bit of background, I'm a businessman. I've helped run the family business in town for the last 17 years since finishing school. I'm a farmer, I grew up on the family farm, so I know all about the hard work and sacrifice that goes into keeping a place like that running on the day-to-day. I'm also a retired professional wrestler, so I'm perfectly at home fighting in front of live crowds, albeit I'm used to slightly bigger crowds than this and wearing slightly less clothes than I am right now. But first and foremost, I come to you today as a father. I've got 2 beautiful young children at home, and my mission statement is really simple. I am not looking to carve out some glitzy career in Cardiff Bay. I'm looking to cement a happy, peaceful future for my children right here in Cardigan Bay. Not just mine, yours as well. That's all I've got to say, just before.
Thank you very much. Green Party, Morgan Phillips.
Thanks. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here. So I'm Morgan. I live up in Newquay. I'm a father and governor of Newquay Primary School, amongst other things. I'm standing for the Green Party because we're bringing a fresh politics to the UK, and we hope to bring that bold and radical politics to the Senedd to really change how things are done there. The main thing we're standing on is inequality, I think. The gap between rich and poor has become so extreme in this country, and it's at the root of many of the problems that we face. And we want to start immediately to tackle that inequality and to help people who are suffering with the cost of living and the financial pressures we're under. So we're going to freeze rents, implement a one-year rent freeze. We're going to replace council tax, which is unfair at the moment, with a more fair land value tax. We're going to cut bus fares, introduce a £1 single fare for adults and free buses for under 22s. We're going to provide universal healthcare, universal childcare for children aged 9 months to 4 years. We're going to expand social housing. There's a 10-year programme to build 60,000 social homes. And we want to support local businesses to prioritise local suppliers through public procurement. And the last thing we really want to do is invest in energy efficiency to fund home retrofitting programmes to lower energy bills and improve living conditions and people's health.
Thank you very much. Reform, Michael Allen.
Shwmae pawb, thank you very much for your time, and thank you to Pure West Radio and the Queen's Hall. It's a great event tonight. I really appreciate it. Sorry, I got a bit of a croaky voice. Too much door knocking and too much chatting probably. But I'm Halford West born, but I'm a Milford Haven boy, born and bred. Like many families, because of the economic downturn in my dad's industry, I was forced to move out the area as a teenager and spent the rest of my life trying to get back, which I managed to do in 2019. Being pushed out the area meant that my career followed a little bit of a different path. I worked in inward investment, initially in Wales. I lived in Wrexham for 22 years. But initially I did job creating projects throughout Wales, across the whole 4 quarters of Wales, trying to find companies who would move in and create jobs in the area. The business I ran for 23 years in various forms actually worked on inward investment and created a business that allowed me to work in 18 countries to pick up expertise in job creation. And I was a special advisor to 5 national governments. I'm also a published author in innovation. Innovation is very close to my heart, especially in healthcare. And I do not want people to be in a situation where the hospitals are affected because there is no innovation left in the NHS.
Thank you very much. Independent, Aaron Carey.
Thank you very much. Good evening. As Tom said, my name's Aaron Carey. I'm standing as an independent candidate for Ceredigion Penfro. I'm not here to follow a party line. I'm here to represent you. I believe in practical solutions that make a real difference in people's lives. That means improving access to healthcare and GP services, supporting local businesses to create jobs here at home, making housing affordable for families and young people, and investing in our schools so every child has the opportunity to thrive. I want to be a close, accessible representative, someone who you can reach out to when there's an issue in your community. Make sure your concerns are heard in the Senedd. I will bring people together from local councils to community groups to find practical solutions that work for everyone. I'm standing here to focus solely on the needs of the communities, to act on your priorities and to ensure our voices are not lost in party politics. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Liberal Democrats, Alistair Cameron.
Yes, good evening, everybody. Start with a little bit of my background. I grew up in Begelly, went to university and work, and then came back. 4 years ago, I was elected as a Pembrokeshire County Councillor for Kilgetty and Begelly, and last year I joined Pembrokeshire Council's Cabinet for Finance, Information Technology and Human Resources. So what are the Welsh Liberal Democrats' priorities for this election? Well, I'll start with health and social care because we know they're under enormous pressure at the moment. And what we would do is we would give extra support to social care. We would give £300 million to that. And of course, that will, as well as helping those people who desperately need social care, it will help our health service as well, because there are many people in hospitals who are well enough to go out, but they can't go out because the care is not provided. It's not going to solve every problem, but it's certainly going to help. Where's the money going to come from? Well, we'd like it to come, first of all, from the UK government or be reallocated within the Welsh government. If that is not forthcoming, and it may well not be forthcoming, then we'll be willing to put up income tax by 1 penny in the pound for a limited period to pay for it, because you cannot conjure the money from thin air. We'd also provide support for the local economy, and this would be capital support to help small and growing businesses in areas such as innovative businesses, high-value manufacturing and creative industries. And we'd also support report. Thank you very much, Diolch.
Thank you very much. Labour, Mark Tierney.
Good evening. I'm Mark Tierney, Welsh Labour's candidate, running alongside First Minister Eluned Morgan, who is our #1 candidate. I hear a lot in this election about change. For me, it's about fairness. The question for all of us here tonight is, what sort of Wales do we want to live in by the start of the next decade? Welsh Labour offers a new chapter for Pembrokeshire, where good jobs and fair wages lift people out of poverty, where our public services are properly funded and accessible, and where we care enough for our people to create security and stability for you and your family. I hear the frustrations on the doorstep, but soundbites and slogans won't make change happen. The next Welsh Government must have a credible, costed plan to deliver what the people of Wales want. Welsh Labour has that plan, credible, costed and deliverable. So vote Welsh Labour in Ceredigion Penfro on May the 7th.
Thank you very much. And Conservative, Samuel Kitts.
Noswaith dda, diolch yn fawr I chi gyd. I love Pembrokeshire. I was born here, raised here and educated here. But too often Pembrokeshire gets a raw deal over the last 27 years from the Welsh Government. And I'm worried that Pembrokeshire's voice may well be lost in this new electoral system that Tom ably explained at the beginning. And that's why I think Pembrokeshire and Ceredigion Penfro as a whole requires strong, experienced representation, politicians who are willing to roll their sleeves up and get on with the job representing you, and who have a strong record of delivery. From myself, I've delivered improvements on the A477 at the Nash Fingerpost Junction, at Red Roses and in Milton. I've delivered a banking hub in Pembroke Dock, and we've advocated and delivered the Celtic Freeport, bringing jobs and prosperity back here to Pembrokeshire. But what I'm really worried about is what may happen on May the 7th if you and Pembrokeshire and Ceredigion Pembrokeshire don't have those strong, experienced voices to make sure that Pembrokeshire isn't lost in this new system. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you very much. We are finally all met. It's a large hustings. We wanted to make every effort we could to make sure you could hear from every single person that is eligible for your vote on Thursday, the 7th of May. We're going to move straight in to our first question related to healthcare, and Tanya Absalom has the question.
Hi everyone, how are you? So, healthcare services in West Wales have been significantly reduced in the last number of years. What will you do to make sure that Ceredigion and Penfro remain safe places to live? In particular, how will you address the availability of mental health services, and what action will you continue to take regarding restriction of social media use amongst under 16s?
Mark Tierney, Labour.
Thank you very much for the question. Really appreciate that. Look, Withybush Hospital is an integral part of the health service in West Wales, and it will continue to be so regardless of what happens next. We have pledged in our manifesto to build a brand new hospital in West Wales. This is the first time that we've had some real investment coming from Westminster, thanks to a UK Labour government, and we want to £30 million repairing the rotten concrete there. We've invested in works to make sure the building is secure from fire. We've invested in new X-ray equipment, but we understand the importance of healthcare going forward, and we want to make sure that Withybush continues to provide services for the people who need it in the future. I met with the BMA very recently, and they talked to me about some of the issues at Withybush in terms of recruitment of staff and how they want to provide services going forward. So for me, it's about listening to clinicians on the front line to understand better how services should be provided, and then sharing that message with the health board. You mentioned about mental health services. We've already invested in the 111 Press 2 service. Part of our manifesto commitment going forward is about how we make sure that people get that emergency service in mental health as quickly as possible. We're going to introduce a same-day emergency service for people, but we also want to improve community services as well, which means that people can access an ongoing mental health support in their own communities where they feel safer and more comfortable to do it. And we have a specific action plan around mental health support for mums-to-be and mums in particular, because we understand that mental health services for those people in particular needs to be improved.
Thank you very much. I'm going to let everyone have their answer and then we'll come back with any further comments that we may have. So next is the time to hear from Michael Allen, Reform.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. It's a great question, and there's unpack it a little bit. Thanks very much, because I think there's 3 pieces to it. I mean, the first thing I would say loud and clear is on the doorstep. I've done a lot of doorsteps now. People know that Withybush Hospital has been closed by stealth, okay, and across county. And frankly, I would find it very difficult to defend that. I respect people who are defending government's policy at the moment, but everybody knows it's indefensible, okay? I think Welsh Government has created, Plaid and Labour governments have created a problem which we would solve, and that is because of the question mark over the Withybush Hospital and Bronglais, but particularly Withybush, there's a problem that it's created its own problem that people won't go there with families to work there because they don't know if they move their kids into schools locally, whether they'll have to move again in 2 years' time. So the government itself has created the uncertainty. Secondly, thirdly rather, on the mental health pressures, I'm not an expert on social media mental health, right? So I'm not going to answer that. It's not really my field. What I do know is that, again, the government has created a lot of mental health pressures which don't need to be there in Wales. And in particular, I would cite the veterans. Because there was one thing about Wales and the UK generally, I hang my head in shame, and that is our veterans. And a lot of the problems with their mental health come down because they're being pushed to the bottom of the social housing ladder every year for 25, 26 years. Okay, so I hope that answers your question, okay?
Yeah, thank you very much. Liberal Democrats, Alistair Cameron.
Yes, thank you. I mean, I won't repeat what I said earlier, but our main way to try and assist the health service in the whole of Wales is to provide this support for social care and ensure it's properly funded. You also specifically referred to mental health services, and there is a commitment in our manifesto to provide extra support for mental health services. And what we really want to do is ensure they're treated on an equal basis with any physical health problems. They're not at the moment. And a long time ago, when the Liberal Democrats in the UK were were in coalition with the Conservatives, we then tried to equalise the priority for both of those services. Now, going on to the local situation, the situation over Withybush, clearly what the Health Board are trying to do is centralise some services in some areas to try, to try and keep the service going. I mean, the reason they're doing that is this massive shortage of staff really to do it. And I know I spoke a long time ago to the chief executive of Hugh Farr, and he was showing me the numbers, how short they are of doctors and nurses. And I even see that in my local surgery. So we need a proper workforce plan really to recruit and to train, and above all, perhaps to retain doctors in this area. And the problem, of course, with the downgrading of Withybush, so that's in effect what it is it's requiring people to travel even further to get basic services, especially if you live somewhere like West Pembrokeshire. It's just, completely unacceptable. And when I was on the county council meeting recently, we unanimously voted against what they're proposing, and we demanded an urgent meeting with the Health Board to try and find some way out of this problem. The Welsh Liberal Democrats, we have a commitment in our manifesto for additional capital investment into Withybush as well. You finally referred, I think, to social media for under 16. There certainly needs to be restrictions on it, no doubt about that. I used to be a teacher, and it really was very difficult in practically teaching lessons then, with people on their phones all the time. Quite a few schools in Pembrokeshire have now actually put restrictions. It started with Penrhyn Dowie School, St David's School, and I'd say virtually all of the secondary schools have restrictions. And you concentrate. So it's not good for the health of the children either. Thank you very much, Joch of that.
Thank you very much. George Chadsey.
As an independent, I don't have a lot of fancy figures or a party to sort of feed me information as far as the health service goes. So most of my opinions are going to be sort of anecdotal based. So I still feel they're quite relevant to the discussion. As far as the local health service goes, my father recently had an operation on his hand, and he was really fortunate that he eventually found his way to Withybush after being messed around by Glangwili for what felt like months. And the service he received there was absolutely fantastic. And it really brought it home for me just how important, a hospital is to an area like this. I mean, it's criminal they don't have an A&E, frankly. But we're really lucky where we are in the Tavy Valley. We've got the little health centre in Cardigan, which is fantastic for anyone that needs like immediate care. One thing that I think gets missed out when we're talking about health service is how reliant we are in the rural areas on the air ambulance service. Now, I personally do, both personally and through my business, and I spoke to the girls that were collecting, and I asked them, why aren't you funded by the government? And their answer was really scary. They said that they would rather be self-funded and sort of charity funded, because they knew if the government got their hands on them, they just fill them with middle management and it would be an absolute sham. And I think that's quite a scary reality of what we're working with. I think we've got a fantastic health service, but it's really top heavy. The care that we all seem to get at the end is fantastic. And I wouldn't knock not a single doctor or nurse or anyone working in a hospital. But it feels like they're swimming uphill, frankly. Now, to go back to the mental health and social media, it's been really heartwarming. I was saying to everyone earlier on this campaign trail, it's all been really friendly, and compared to some of the poison you've seen spread across social media when it comes to politics, it's been really heartwarming. So,
Yeah. Thank you very much. Samuel Kurtz, Conservatives.
Thank you, and thank you, Tanya, for your question, because it's really personal to everybody, because everybody in Pembrokeshire has a story to tell about Withybush. I was born there, as was my brother. Both my grandmothers passed away there, and at different times, Withybush Hospital has kept both my parents alive. So it's very personal to me. And what we've seen happen over the years of cut after cut of services and centralisation to Carmarthen through Glangwili is a political decision. And what I find deeply infuriating is when health ministers have been challenged. Take Skaboo, for example. In confirmation to Paul Davis, the then health secretary, said it was a financial decision to centralise Skaboo services to Glangwili. And when it came to asking to meet with constituents, Mark Drakeford said that he saw no reason to meet with those affected by those changes. And if we take Bronglais and Withybush collectively, we're the only party that mentioned both hospitals by name in our manifesto to protect services at those two hospitals. And I think that's incredibly important, because the time to travel from Carmarthen to Swansea hospitals is far less than from Haverfordwest to Carmarthen, or from Aberystwyth down to Carmarthen or Llanelli. To come on to your point around social media, I'm proud that the UK Conservatives in Westminster have led on this. They brought forward, through votes in the House of Lords, a ban on social media for 16 and unders. I think that's really important. We've seen that happen in Australia, and the benefits that can bring, and the impact that negative social media and the way the algorithm feeds certain things to young people. I think it's a positive way forward. There was reluctance from the UK Labour Party, but the UK Conservatives have led the cause on this, and I'm grateful that the House of Lords have deemed it necessary to ban under 16s from social media.
Thank you. Plaid Cymru, Anna Nicol.
Yeah, so thank you for the question. And I have to say, I've been absolutely shocked and horrified by some of the stories I've heard going around now, knocking the doors in Pembrokeshire and in Ceredigion, actually. And Plaid Cymru would stand absolutely against the downgrading of Withybush Hospital here and Bronglais. Our number one candidate, Ellen Jones, has been a strong campaigner to stop that downgrading happening in Bronglais, and she's done that down, which will be an urgent priority for us. We want to see more investment back into GPs because people are actually not able to access GPs and therefore ending up in expensive kind of hospital services which don't work in A&E corridors. We'd also boost dentists, and we'd want to shift the system to a model that suits rural communities like this to provide good healthcare. So with the other parts of the question, with mental health, that is a massive problem in our communities again. Over 50% of young people have been to their GP with mental health concerns, and 30% of GP consultations in Wales are involving mental health concerns. So we really need to tackle this. And Plaid Cymru would introduce a Minister for Public Health who would be responsible for really promoting and driving better wellbeing mentally and physically. And just finally, on the social media side, I believe that it should be the big tech companies where we should be targeting legislation and stopping, not allowing them to be sharing this content or promoting content with the algorithms that is damaging for young people, rather than putting the onus on young people not to be allowed to also benefit from some of the things. So that kind of dangerous content from young people just shouldn't be there. And to protect young people, we really need to legislate against that being allowed.
Thank you. Aaron Carey.
Thank you very much for your question. First, to address the healthcare issues, I started a petition 15 years ago when they first decided to close the minor injuries unit at South Penns. It was relatively successful at the time, but they tried to do it over sort of Christmas time, in between Christmas and New Year. We got in front of it, and I did manage to get the petition in front of the chair of the health board at the time, and it stayed open. 6 months later, it closed again, and that's when it kind of started all this salami slicing all throughout West Wales. The amount of people, again, we've all said tonight, we've spoken to, and they've had issues and had to be set up to Glangwili. I think if there's specialist treatment people need, they don't mind travelling perhaps, but having to go up for just general things that are quite, every day in most parts of the country. But down here, it seems to be sort of, like hen's teeth. You just can't get the treatment for it. I would like to see money pumped into Withybush Hospital and Bronglais instead of into a brand new hospital. It's as Michael said, it's causing issues with the staff there. The staff are fantastic. But you go there, they can do as much as they can for you. But I think I can't imagine how much how demoralised they must be every time if you Google Withybush Hospital closures or protests or what's going to happen to my future. It must be awful for man to go to work like that every day and keep a smile on their face looking after people. Onto mental health services. I'd like to see a mental health specialist in every surgery, doctor surgery or health centre. Again, doctors are very well qualified. Mental health is a relatively new thing compared to physical health. You go to the doctors, they tend to give you some tablets, and they say, well, if you're still feeling a bit sad next time, come back and we'll give you your tablets a bit. You need somebody who can deal with people and help them from the bottom up instead of just throwing tablets at them. With regards to social media for under 16s, my daughter's just sat there behind you, and she does have access to limited social media, and I do keep an eye on it. I think there's an issue that a lot of parents don't keep an eye on things. I'd like to see some more legislation in.
Thank you very much. Morgan Phillips, Green Party.
Thanks for the question, Tanya. Yeah, it's such an important one. I have a 5-year-old son, and I have two parents who are kind of in their 70s and both sort of involved in the health system in various ways now through the various similar so it's so important. I think first of all to say, the Green Party is fully committed to protecting Withybush Hospital and Bronglais and making sure those services are still there for people, and that includes investing in staff to ensure that those hospitals can be staffed. But our overall kind of principle around this is to think about being a wellness service rather than an illness service. We need to think about how we can improve people's lives and improve their health so they don't get ill and have to go into hospital. So we know we have huge problems in this country around obesity, so we want to do work to improve that and give people opportunity to spend more time outside to help keep them fit and healthy. I want to make sure that people are eating healthy local food. We want to ensure that there's young people have access to sporting facilities and things like that to improve how they are living and their general health and their kind of commitment to a healthy lifestyle long term. On mental health, it is shocking that where we're at. I mean, it's the the fact that so many people are suffering with mental health problems is symptomatic of the sort of society we live in. We know that poverty is a huge influencer on people's mental health, the stress that creates. And so this is why we treat poverty as a mental health issue. And we want to make sure there's rapid sort of early help for people when they are starting to feel the symptoms of mental health illness, and so to support them to do that. On social media, it's a complex one. I think the best thing that we can do to solve this is to work with young people to figure out what is the best way for them to have the critical thinking skills, have the ability to do other things in their lives rather than just spend time on social media, and co-produce a strategy with them, and not necessarily use a blunt instrument of an outright ban.
Thank you very much. And finally, Gwyn Evans.
Yeah, thank you. I'll start off with the social media, if I may. I'm a great-grandfather of 5 children, so I'm very concerned about it indeed. And I don't think there's a silver bullet for this. Australia has shown the way. My wife's family are from Austria. They're doing something similar. But I think it's a combination of the parents and the schools to wake up to the fact that kids put one phone in and they've got another one in the, etc. We've got to wake up to it. They're very clever, which is a good sign, in fact. But it is the platforms themselves. That is the source of a lot of the problems, and they've got to be responsible. We've got to make them responsible, and if they're not, fine them dramatically. The Bronglice and Withybush, I know Bronglice better because we've had the big thing about the stroke unit problem, and it's the beginning of the end, if you like. Who knows where it'll go? That's why we're making a big stand on it. And you cannot make Glangwili in blue lights in an hour. And we all know that that golden hour is golden. That's why they call it golden. And we can't do that. So therefore, you are sentencing some people to maybe not death, but certainly a very, very difficult life. Let's put it like that. And we're not happy about it. Air ambulance, as mentioned, is really important to me because I'm a farmer in North Ceredigion, and I know too many friends who have been saved by the air ambulance, and moving it from Welshpool, I think is a disgrace, and I'm not happy about that. Also, the nurses and not enough nurses, etc. We just heard recently that the ones coming out of training now, they've been told there won't be a job for them. The first responders, they've been told there won't be a job for them. I find that amazing. What encouragement is that for people to go in for the next year? There won't be. They will look to do something else. We've got 30 nurses from Kerala. They're very nice people. We've also got massive amount of agency nurses, and they get paid 3-4 times what the ordinary nurse does.
Thank you. Good. Thank you very much. There we have it. There are our answers. Tanya, I'm going to give you the opportunity. Do you have any thoughts after hearing what you've heard on the panel? Kim will come over with the microphone for you. No, to Tanya, back to the person that asked the question. Yeah.
Thank you for your answers. I appreciate it. The only thought I've got, I am part of the campaign of bereaved parents for the Raise the Age campaign, working alongside Lord Nash, Ellen Room, etc., for the restrictions around social media for the under 16. Sorry, and I appreciate all of your comments. It's a very divisive, balanced argument. However, I'd like to make the point and see what your thoughts are, that until platforms are regulated enough that they are safe for our children, that our children need to be kept safe from them. Thank you.
I'm going to randomly pick Morgan Phillips to address that point.
Thank you. Yeah, I've done a lot of work on this and the impact of social media on young people when I was working at Global Action Plan, the charity. We did a lot of work on it, on the online harms. I think, yeah, your point around getting to the point where they're better regulated is the really key thing, and that's something the Green Party is pushing for. And we're in the unique position of not being funded by anyone who might have a vested interest in preventing that regulation. We certainly know that some parties do get donations from social media companies, and they can have a very, very powerful lobbying effect that you can trust in the Green Party to not be affected by that.
Thank you very much. If you're listening to this, watching this on our social media, be sure to share your thoughts in the comments or get in touch on, you can get in touch on WhatsApp 01437 764455 on the Pure West Radio app, or you can email studio@purewestradio.com. We are going to move along due to time constraints, and we're going to look at the theme of business. Lee Bridges has a question for us.
Thank you. Ceredigion Penfro is made of many small to medium-sized businesses. There's a perfect storm happening for those businesses at the moment, whether it be increasing taxation, business rates, the VAT threshold not being lifted, utilities, fuel being the most recent one. There's just a list of a few things. But what would you do to allow businesses to thrive and to limit the bureaucracy that is currently affecting us and allowing us to grow ourselves? Would really appreciate your feedback.
Aaron Kerry.
Thank you very much for your question, Lee. Thank you. My background, my family's had a small business in Pembroke for 45 years now. So we've gone through a couple of downs and ups and lots more downs after that. It's a hard question. It's a difficult way forward for everyone, I think. There's so many things that, as you say, utility bills hitting us, there's not much we can do that here, but people can be lobbied. There should be windfall taxes on those big companies with the utilities. But to support, there needs to be I don't want to go back to the development WDA, but there needs support coming from Cardiff for businesses to help them to save money to help them promote. I don't know what. Excuse me. Sorry, hang on 2 seconds. Listen, I think there's ever increasing bill that's coming onto businesses all the time. You've got the business rates. I think it's an awful thing. It's like putting a foot on the neck of a business before they've even made any money. Tax someone on the money they're making, that's no problem at all. I get that. You make money, you expect to pay a bit of tax. But to say, oh, well, hang on, I'm going to hold you down there, then you now try and make some money. There needs to be a bigger investment in from local authorities and Welsh Government in buying up some properties that are empty in towns where they can actually give a decent rent to local businesses if people want to start up. There should be incentives for people to start up for a couple of years without any taxes on them at all, if possible, just to get their foot in the door and get out there. I think that's answered the question for you.
Well, if you think you've answered, then that's fine. Samuel Kurtz.
Thank you, Lee, for the question. And just to separate it, because you mentioned some reserved and devolved issues there as well. So I'll focus on the devolved, the responsibilities that the Welsh Government can impact. And business rates is one of the heaviest burdens on businesses in Wales. We've got some of the highest business rates out of the United Kingdom. And only recently we've had changes to rateable values, and we've seen the increases of 200-300% for some businesses, seeing their rates going up. And I've held an online business forum on this to try and bring together the valuations office, government representatives, support networks for businesses to get the support that they require. But it's a decision at the end of the day. We're committed to cutting business rates for pubs, post offices, and small businesses in their entirety. And if you take the example of Bridge Street in Haverfordwest, you have a multinational coffee shop on one side and an independent coffee shop on the other, both the same square footage. One international company has a backroom HR department, an international supply chain, the ability to buy in bulk, and one's an independent. Yet they pay the same business rates because of the location they're in. We think that's unfair. So we would support those smaller independent businesses to make sure that that works. And then more broadly, the environment in which businesses have to operate in Wales is one of constant regulation, constant increases in taxation. More broadly, we are now spending £333 billion on welfare, yet only raising 330 through income tax. So we are short £3 billion on welfare to income tax that we're raising in the UK, and that's unsustainable. National insurance contribution increases has really hit businesses. The energy prices as well have really hit businesses. But I want a Wales that's open for business, that business voice is at the heart of decisions being made in Cardiff Bay. And if that means me going to the M4 on Princess of Wales Bridge with a sign saying Wales is open for business to bring people people here, then I think that's something that your representatives need to be doing. More broadly on tourism as well, things like the 182 nights regulation for self-catering holiday lets, the highest anywhere in the UK. We'd cut that down to 105 in line with HMRC regulations to give some breathing space for those businesses who've had it tough since COVID, who haven't fully recovered. We've got a far more immature tourism sector compared to some other areas. It needs support.
Thank you very much. Anna Nicol, Plaid Cymru.
Yeah, thank you. Which would be dedicated to supporting businesses with investment, innovation and trading. So we believe that actually, there is no shortage of potential in the Welsh economy. It's about kind of enabling our businesses to thrive. We'd also look at business rates. We want to decrease business rates for the high street and stop that kind of unfair advantage for out of town businesses. And Kerry Ferguson, who's our number 2 on the list, runs her business in Aberystwyth, and she's absolutely raring to go on addressing business rates in Wales to make that fairer and better for businesses. We'd also look to make better use of public procurement. The public sector invests billions in Wales, and it's not all going as it should do, more into actually being then reinvested in our own businesses and supply chains. And finally, well, not finally, I'm sure there'll be more, but if I focus on skills, we need to support kind of young people to be skilled up to go into these businesses that have the skills for the future, and businesses really to be ready for looking at where those future opportunities are. So tourism, agriculture here, energy is a massive one. We need to be working with colleges and ensuring that you've got the kind of that workforce for the future to enable businesses, small businesses in this area to really kind of thrive and grow then into the future.
Thank you. Gwyn Evans.
Yes, this is one of our main areas because most people in Gwlad, they've come from the business direction or got their own businesses. I've travelled the world looking at various businesses in textiles and helping them out. Two of the things that I would say immediately is we should be supporting the local businesses in Wales instead of concentrating on bringing the big corporations in, outside investment. There's plenty of businesses here, and if they just give a little bit of a hub forward, they would be doing well. The cost of fuel, this is ridiculous what's happening with the Gulf of Hormuz. It is the price has gone through the roof, and it's the boys in the red braces who are making the money. It's got nothing to do with the real world. It doesn't need to go up that much. And the price of electricity, that is outrageous here. We would also get rid of net zero because it just doesn't work. It's costing us an absolute fortune. The rates in Aberystwyth in the shops is the same, if not higher, than Cardiff. Why? And nobody will give me the answer. In farming are small business enterprises, and the paperwork that they have just gone into the SFS scheme, and the things that I have to do, the hoops I have to go through, I could have not done it, but it's the only show in town. It's the only one available. Transport infrastructure would be helpful, and skilled labour. I was talking to a business the other day. He said colleges used to ring us up and say, can you take a trainee? And now he rings them and they haven't got any. And he says he wants the youngsters to come in. Not everybody wants to go to university and come out with a big debt. They're very happy to learn a trade, and good for them. There's nothing wrong with that. So it is that sort of direction. The example that I have is, and I grew up with Laura Ashley, who put factories all over little towns in mid Wales, and the money that was kept there was phenomenal. It got to the point that in Carno, they had to have a nightclub.
Thank you. Labour, Mark Tierney.
Thank you very much, Lee, for your question. And we all know that small businesses are the backbone of the Pembrokeshire economy, and it's certainly something that the Welsh Government, through a Labour Welsh Government, wants to support. We've provided, since 2020, about £1 billion worth of rate relief to hospitality, to retail, to leisure businesses in Wales. Certainly since the COVID pandemic, we have been supporting businesses, and recently we reintroduced that 15% rate relief for hospitality because the UK government was able to do it. That money was passed on through Welsh Government to make that happen. A large number of businesses are already subject to rate relief in Wales anyway. And very recently, there was an act introduced in Welsh Government that introduced a 3-yearly re-evaluation of business rates, and that's going to be happening in 2026. So whoever forms the government next will all be committing to that business rates evaluation. And we want to cut down on business bureaucracy with better business support. We also want to make sure that we can help businesses grow with a grant for young entrepreneurs, because we need to have that next generation of business spirit being developed in our communities as well. And Welsh Labour is looking at a rural economic plan specifically for areas like Pembrokeshire and Ceredigion. Eluned Morgan has already done a couple of these already in her role as a Senedd member for the area, because she understands how important it is to make sure that the rural economy works for local people. How do we get people out of poverty? We provide them with good jobs. She's already held one investment summit, putting Wales on the global stage. We've got plans to do more of that as well if we're re-elected. And we want to double the number of cooperatives and community-owned businesses, because that's how you sustain wealth within your local communities, making sure that that circular economy, which is talked about quite a bit, actually works for us.
Thank you very much. Reform, Michael Allen.
I love this question. Thanks, Lee. Rates, which I know will affect a business like your own business, Lee, we would put significant pressure on all the local authorities in Wales to get more sensible with the rates they apply to businesses. There's a lot to unpack here, so I'm going to whiz through. I think net zero will go under a reform government in Wales. We will also, and I think we've won over a lot of farmers already on this, bring some sanity back to the farming business. We will cut the red tape. We will help with the inheritance tax at UK level, because no family farm should be put under that pressure. And we've already committed to fund the young farmers for the whole of the next government, because we understand that is the farming business community of the future. Just saying, under the current government, under Labour and under Plaid, it took 25 years to build the Valley Relief Road, which is a regional project, not a mega project. It's a regional project by European standards.
It was one of the biggest projects in Europe.
No, that's not true. That's not true. That's what I'd ask everybody at home just to Google that and check that out. It's not one project in Europe, but a long way. It's not. It's a myth. Just on inward investment. Inward investment is extremely important to a country like Wales. It brings fresh ideas, and for every one company that comes in with foreign direct investment, it spawns other multiple companies. It's very important to freshen up the innovation of a country. And I have a lot of experience in this field, and what I would say is that the big problem we have with Wales with foreign direct investment is no major European or international company will come to a country like Wales, where the transport infrastructure, both in the M4 and at the airport, is so poor. We're not in that game at the moment. We can only get back in that game by improving our infrastructure. And my last word, if I've got time on this, is young entrepreneurs. You don't spawn young entrepreneurs by putting them into resources in the cloud. You bring in experienced senior people who will mentor them, will encourage them, and will help them get over the hurdles and the lack of understanding that all young entrepreneurs have. With a reform government, we will improve FDI. We won't close down the agency as the Welsh government did when they first came into power. We will move things forward and make our economy sing, like Estonia, like Lithuania, like Latvia, comparable countries.
Thank you very much. George Chadsey.
So as I mentioned earlier on, I'm lucky enough to work and run in the sort of construction industry. And the interesting thing about Newcastle Emlyn is that there's 4 independent business builders yards. And, you know, while some of the multinationals have tried to sort of move in, they've never lasted. But where I'm living, then, I'd say the two biggest industries for us are tourism and farming. So if you haven't got tents in your garden, you better be milking a cow. And they seem to be the two industries that are sort of under the most sort of pressure and being attacked. I mean, you've only got to look at farmers now. It wasn't that long ago they were told that they need to diversify. If you've got a spare barn, convert it, turn it into a holiday let. So they did that. And now they've been told that it's got to be rented out at least 180 days a year, which isn't really very sustainable. It's something that was meant to be just a bit extra cash on the side. Now suddenly it's become a burden. And if it's not rented out or you know, occupied in those 180 odd days, they're getting hammered with extra rates, and they're not allowed to sell it because they haven't got planning permission to have it as a dwelling. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely mind-blowing that there's people that are making these decisions, and they're not making the decisions for us. They're making decisions and putting them onto us. And yeah, things, if you're coming up with an idea in Cardiff, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work in Cardigan or Pembroke Dock or Tregaron. And that's what I think we need to change. It's really frustrating. I've been talking to lots of the local businesses that I deal with, that I work with, that I've supported. And the common theme, I was speaking to a guy who runs a construction company in Llanarth by Aberaeron. And he said he used to have a Rolodex full of numbers. He said, I had good boys or I had bad boys. He said, now there's no boys. Nobody wants to work. Nobody wants to mix concrete. I remember in school, we were all encouraged. We all had to leave the area, go to university, and then potentially come back. People are going and getting degrees now, and maybe they feel like they're too good to be doing these jobs. We need steel, sharpen steel.
Thank you. Alistair Cameron, Liberal Democrats.
Yes, thank you very much. Well, first of all, I grew up in my parents' hotel in Begelly, and I got from that an idea of how hard it is to work if you're self-employed. They worked enormous hours, to keep that business going. So on the business support, I mentioned a little bit earlier that what we would do is we provide capital support to help small and growing businesses, and particularly we concentrate on innovative businesses, high-value manufacturing, creative industries, financial technologies, and cyber work. I also mentioned earlier that we support the free port in Pembrokeshire, and what this does is it provides tax incentives really for the Pembroke Dock and Milford Haven area, and that is to help businesses grow in that area. And in particular, what we're looking at there is to support the floating wind turbines, which are going to be developed in the Irish Sea, and that has enormous potential to provide jobs for this area to maintain those turbines. Moving on to business rates, we would permanently extend the business rate relief in the retail, leisure and hospitality sectors. We would freeze the rates multiplier for struggling businesses. And what we'd want to do is to look at introducing an online sales levy of 2% for large online retailers, because obviously local businesses are having to compete with online retailers, and it's not fair competition at the moment. We would also regularly review the business rate relief thresholds across all of the sectors, and we'd look to provide a long-term reform plan for business taxation in Wales. As Liberal Democrats, we want to go back into the European Customs Union and eventually back into the single market. Leaving the European Union has caused immense damage to our businesses locally, because we need to be able to trade with our nearest neighbours. We also support giving small and medium enterprises better procurement rules so they can compete, and get business within local government funded projects. And just finally on tourism, I'm a member of the Council's Cabinet. The Cabinet recently rejected bringing in the tourism tax in Pembrokeshire. And personally, as a Cabinet member, I do support the work of Visit Pembrokeshire, which is developing tourism and making it work for everybody in Pembrokeshire, and at the same time, safeguarding our environment. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you. And lastly, Morgan Phillips, Green Party.
Thanks, Lee. It's a great question. I think economic prosperity kind of works when the money that's spent locally stays locally and circulates locally rather than being extracted. So that's a big part of our thinking around this. And so we really want to support local businesses and small businesses to not have the same sort of rates that the larger corporations pay. So we're going to introduce a land value-based system, which means that smaller businesses will pay less than larger corporations like supermarkets and so on. The comments about net zero, I think, is so misguided. We know that there's a green revolution happening, green transformation happening. There's so many jobs to be found in the green industry if we invest in it. And it's worth making the point as well that net zero by 2050 is an inadequate policy. It doesn't actually limit warming to 1.5 degrees. We're already at 1.5 degrees and it won't bring it down. So it's lunacy to say that we should scrap net zero. It's important to protect businesses, protect our towns. There won't be any businesses if climate change takes the impact that it takes. And the last thing I think to say is Reform will say that they will stand up for local businesses, but you've got to remember that 2/3 of their funding came from one person, a billionaire called Christopher Harburn. He's donated £22 million to the Reform Party since it began. He also took £4 million from another millionaire who actually lives in Hong Kong, and both of them are involved in cryptocurrency. Reform, as well as the Tories, as well as Labour to an extent, are beholden to big business, not small business. You need to vote for parties that will stand up for small businesses because they're not beholden to those large donors.
Thank you very much. It's a wide-reaching topic, talking agriculture, talking heavy industry, talking high street. Bridge Street was mentioned during that conversation. Lots that I want to unpick about how the heavy industry that George referenced there, the turbines that are being considered aren't actually going to be built in Pembrokeshire. They're going to be built in Port Talbot as part of that Celtic Freeport. So there's lots to unpack and consider. Lee, I'm going to give you an opportunity to respond and give a follow-on if you have one.
Such has been said, but we're on a time restraint, so I won't. But I think I'll just summarise by saying that for myself, I'm still undecided about who I will vote for, and I think it's important for all candidates to understand that it's not one thing at the moment that business owners are feeling. It is an attack from all angles, multiple angles. I've been in business now for nearly 20 years, and I don't think I've ever found it as challenging, even in COVID, and that's saying something. And I did navigate through COVID very difficultly, but at the moment, it is coming from all angles, and I don't feel at the moment that when we are dealing with either local authority or Welsh Government as a whole, that they appreciate the pressure. And I will finish by saying that all you need to do is look online at how many commercial properties are up for sale, either by businesses or across the area of the entire constituency, to see the problem that we are facing. And I fear that unless somebody can actually get a grip on the entire picture, that we are looking at a very, very difficult road ahead of us for small businesses. So it would be very good for, I'm looking for a candidate who is seeing the full scope of the problem rather than talking about one or two issues on a wider scale.
Thank you very much. I was going to let actually Alistair Cameron come back on that.
Yeah, I mean, you obviously make a fair point. And the trouble is also with the crisis, the war in Iran, rising prices. At the moment, we can only see it getting worse. There's no doubt about that. I think, the Senedd has some powers, but obviously you've got to look at UK government really and the support it can give, because it's got much more firepower than the Wales Senedd. And you've got to look to them how they can perhaps assist on fuel prices, things like that, because those are things that are really killing off businesses. I suppose I can also say you referenced Pembrokeshire County Council there. I really would hope we would assist people if you've got problems, and I'd suggest you contact them, and if there are difficulties, please speak to your local councillor. They will do their best to help. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will move on as well our questions here this evening into education. And that question is going to be asked by Neil Coombs. Over here, Kim.
Oh, excuse me. Okay. Good evening, panel. I'd like to thank you for coming all the way down here today. It's very important to hear all the views of the panel. So thank you again. So my question is on education. How will you ensure that Ceredigion Penfro receives appropriate finance in order to offer bespoke educational learning experiences and sufficient support teachers in the delivery of the curriculum, alongside ensuring their safety?
We'll start with Morgan Phillips of the Green Party.
Thanks for that question. I think education is obviously absolutely critical to the long-term future, and we need to ensure that we're doing as much as we can to support young people. And one of the reasons I moved home from England was so that my son could be in the Welsh education system, because I think it's far more progressive than what we witness in England. On the specialist education, I think one of the things which is at the heart of the Green Party strategy around both economic prosperity and looking after nature and the land, is to invest in training for young people to get into green jobs and sort of more ecological versions of farming. So things like agroecology and investing there. How do we get the money in to do that? I think it's a big question. I think it's a question of priorities and where we want to spend our money, what we believe in. There's obviously a lot of pressure on the government to fix problems that are really immediate, but we do have to keep an eye on that long-term picture. The Green Party certainly does take that future perspective and think, we do need to invest this money into education, because eventually it pays for itself. Because if we have a well-educated population, then they are then capable of creating the entrepreneurs that are going to provide the jobs of the future. So it is a question for us. I can't say exactly where the money would come from to do that. It's because it needs to be a long-term strategy, and it's something that we certainly need to co-produce with educators and with young people, both in Ceredigion and Penfro, but across Wales, to think about what are the education services they need, what's the training they want, and how do they want to learn, what are the pedagogies that they want to have, what are the approaches to learning that they want. Do they want to be sat in a lecture theatre being lectured at, or do they want to get out on the ground? Do they want to have apprenticeships and so on? So that's what we need to think about, and we want to co-produce that with young people. And
well, I suppose when it comes to education, you don't really have to ask me what I would do. You can ask me what I'm already doing. So I've still got a close relationship with my old secondary school. And it all started when I took some boys on work experience. And we'd normally commit to having one. This year we took two. And then last minute, one of the teachers phoned me up and said, look, would you be willing to take a third boy? But he's trouble, so don't worry about saying no. But, we took a punt on him, and he was the best of the bunch. Now, this is a lad that was more or less written off by the school. They couldn't wait for him to attempt some exams and then be down the road. And it turned out that after spending a week with us, it was about the only thing in school he enjoyed. So for the next year, he was allowed to have 1 day a week where he came and did a work placement with us on the premise then that he behaved the other 4 days. And what that created was a more confident kid. He was much better behaved in school because he suddenly had this carrot that, if he didn't behave, he wasn't allowed to come for a day with the boys. And this scheme has continued with the school, and I'm proud to say that we keep doing it. And we've had some real success stories, boys that have been basically written off by the school. They couldn't wait to see the back end of them, and they're going into school, finishing school, getting into apprenticeships, jobs, whatnot. And that's my real issue with the education system now. Frankly, we're setting kids up to fail. We're encouraging them to go into jobs. I mean, 10 years ago, if someone told you that they wanted to be a graphic designer or a paralegal, you'd say, oh yeah, that's a great job. Suddenly AI has almost made them irrelevant. So I think we're due we're due to have a good look at maybe changing things up. The next government in particular, you're going to be steering the ship through an AI revolution. So whoever's in charge, I hope you're really prepared for that. We need to adjust our education system to incorporate that. Maybe Wales could be a real leader, because we can't just keep telling kids to finish school, go to university, get your degree, and then come home, buy a house, live the dream. It's not feasible anymore.
Thank you. Alistair Cameron, Liberal Democrats.
Yes, thank you very much. Well, I'm the cabinet member with responsibility for education and obviously responsibility for finance and therefore setting the education budget. And I can assure you that is extremely difficult trying to do that and getting agreement from all the councils. On the one hand, you're trying to keep the council tax down as much as possible, but on one hand, you do know you need to provide decent education in Pembrokeshire. What we have done in the last year is we have provided more money for children with additional learning needs. We've definitely increased the budget for that, and I think that will assist some schools. It's not really enough, I'll be honest with you, and there's a lot of schools, certainly in Pembrokeshire, who are now in deficit budgets. Something that the council next year is going to have to look at very closely, because we certainly cannot allow that to continue. I would also say that I think generally in Wales that rural councils are underfunded compared to urban councils. You can look at some of the councils with the lowest council tax levels, places like Cardiff and Newport, and we need fair treatment for the rural councils. Our Liberal Democrat policy is to increase college funding per pupil above the rate of inflation for every year. What we also want to do is we want to strengthen early intervention into schools where we can identify pupils who are perhaps at risk of disengagement really from the age of 14 and closely work with those pupils and to give them the right career options ahead. You're probably aware that Wales doesn't have a good record at the moment in international education tables. If you look at the Programme for International Student Assessment, PISA, it does show that we are falling behind in areas such as reading, maths and science. And if you can't learn those basic skills, you really are in problems for the rest of your life. You've got to do them. And we want to work with those schools. I'm a governor myself at 3 schools in Pembrokeshire, and I can see the work that goes on in those schools to improve reading skills, and also science and numeracy as well. We sometimes we need to look at what happens in England. I'll be honest with you. I know you're perhaps a bit critical of education sometimes in England, but things like phonics and all it has been proved, by research to improve reading standards, and we can't afford to let children fail on that. Thank you very much, Diolch.
Thank you. Reform, Michael Allen.
It's probably the key question, and I would say, along with the health service, one of the most difficult problems that we're facing in Wales. It's not going to be easy to fix it, but reform will certainly have a go. Just dealing with the money side of it first, there's a lot of waste in education of money, and there's a huge amount of money that could go direct to schools that is currently finding its way through all sorts of little bites, taking a penny here, a pound here, a penny here, a pound here. Under a reform government, we've got far more money direct to schools. But we don't think that the school system is perfect. Of course we don't. And in particular, you can't really improve what you can't measure. And the schools in Wales do not have an adequate league table system, as they still retain in England and in most countries of the world. So we need to be able to compare and contrast our schools in a meaningful way in order to put our resources where they really belong. The other thing is, having lived in Holland for 7 years, one of the things I would just pick up from a colleague at the end there, which was a very good point. I think you used the term steel on steel, was it?
Yes.
Right. So in Holland, you have a situation where they have a system called the ROC. So at 16, you go down an academic route, or you go down a industrial, if you like, or preparing for industrial work, the boys and the girls. And the one thing I know, having grown up in Milford Haven, I went to a grammar school. The secondary modern produced more of the real wealth creators, which was really the guys who learned their trades on the sites, on the oil refineries, and many of them went around the world and became really rather wealthy people. Now, the other thing I would bring into education, which I think is extremely important, is a reform mindset, is that we celebrate success, that we celebrate people who have self-made, particularly those who have self-made for their own communities. What we do not do is practice the jealousy that we heard from the Green candidate at the end there, where wealth is bad. There are many great people in the world who do great work through the money that they've earned through the sweat of their brows. And we would never be ashamed of that. We'd always encourage it.
Thank you very much. Labour, Mark Tierney.
Thanks very much for the question. Well, we're hearing it all from Reform tonight, aren't we? In the one breath, they're building transport. In the next breath, they're going to invest in schools. But they're going to pay for it how? Cutting income tax. I'm not quite sure your sums add up. So, the question for us...
We've had 26 years to get them right, and they're still not right.
And we've won successive elections over 26 years.
Not this one.
Put that on the record.
Not this one.
Well, let's just, if I can answer the question, that would be really good. So your question was about how we can ensure appropriate finance, and the Welsh Government has invested against 14 years of Tory austerity. We've continued to protect budgets, and we have passed that budget on to the local authority, and the local authority then is responsible for spending that money. We've provided more than £400 million in grants to local authorities in this last 12-month period to make sure that money gets in to the education system where it's needed. We've overhauled the additional learning needs system to make sure that learners are back at the centre of everything that we do. And of course, we're supporting young people to stay in education longer with the educational maintenance allowance grant as well. And that's very important, that young people who are from disadvantaged backgrounds don't feel as though they have to drop out of the system. The other thing in terms of supporting teachers is that we want to look at attracting new people into education. Of course we do. My daughter is studying for this at the moment. I want her to be able to get a job that won't be replaced by AI, and the job in teaching is a successful job for anyone who wants to do it. I'd encourage that as well. But we also want to make sure that we have those support staff able to stay in the system too. So we will pay them year through. They won't be paid on a part-time basis as has happened before. In terms of behaviour in schools, I'm the Cabinet Member for Young People in Pembrokeshire, and safety in school is something that we've heard a lot about very locally, very recently. The Welsh Government has had a summit on this long before we had issues locally in regard to this space, to make sure that we've got the structures ready in place, multi-agency structures ready in place to deal with problems as they arrive. And I know that they are taking that issue extremely seriously. I'm taking it seriously as the Cabinet Member for Young People. Where we have an underspend in the budget, I'd like to see how we can manage supporting people through the youth service to manage behaviour in schools.
Thank you very much. Gwyn Evans, Gwlad.
Yeah, it's a very difficult one, and I've been involved in recently where Plaid Cymru wanted to close 4 primary schools up in the north of Ceredigion, and we managed to fight that off. The small schools, they definitely have an advantage because they're very family orientated. They're local. They're not kids going on buses all over the place, which is definitely not green. And the other example is we compare it with England, that was said. No, we're looking at places like Estonia and Finland. The way that they do it is amazing, and the way that they come out on top of the various leagues. So we need to learn from them, not from what's happening in England next door. There are less children in the county. That's a fact. We're exporting youth, and the youth go away. They go to universities in faraway places, and they stay there. So there will be closures of certain schools. There will be less money. But the funny thing is that the departments behind it, the bureaucracy behind it, hardly changes at all. But there are less kids. That's not proportional. So if you get rid of the bureaucracy, halve it, literally, and use that money to go at the coalface, that would be good. The bilingual education, I'm doing siarad Cymraeg gynta, it's no problem at all, but I'm against it. It should be 3 and 4 lingual. I worked a lot in Belgium and in Switzerland, and the children learn 3 languages by the age of 11, no problem at all. So it expands their horizons, and it's a good thing. And that is what I'm saying is what we are looking for is not just education, but to come out with well-rounded young people. That is the objective. It's not the piece of paper. It's what they like and what they look like and how they behave. And on that thing, direction, I'm doing a lot with the young farmers. So it's after-school clubs and things. The senior school people tell me that they know the ones that go to the small clubs. They're confident, well-behaved.
Thank you very much. Sam Kitts, Conservatives.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Neil, for your questions. Take the last point first, which was around safety of teachers. We saw a UK Conservative government bring in a automatic compulsory expulsion of any pupil bringing a knife or a weapon to school. That wasn't followed here in Wales, and unfortunately we've seen incidences in Ysgol Dyffryn Aman and even closer to home here. So that's something that we would rectify. For every £1 spent on public services in England, Wales gets £1.20 through the Barnett consequential formula. So there is money available, but we'd change the funding model so that some money goes directly to schools rather than local authorities, so that the pupil, the classroom gets the money rather than through the bureaucracy of 22 local authorities in Wales. But at the same time, we understand, as Alistair alluded to, and it was Kirsty Williams who was the Lib Dem Education Minister in a Labour government, but we understand that delivering services in rural Wales is more expensive. Yet council tax and the distribution of money through the Welsh Government to 22 local authorities is unfairly balanced towards urban councils rather than rural councils. So we've advocated for a rural premium, knowing that it's more expensive to deliver those services in rural areas such as Pembrokeshire and Ceredigion local authority areas. And I think if we take one example, Wales is at the bottom of the PISA rankings, internationally recognised rankings, and Michael Gove brought forward educational reforms in England and has seen the reading rate in England shoot up the rankings because it brought in things like phonics. That is a recognised learning model which was not brought in here in Wales, and 1 in 5 children in Wales are leaving school functionally illiterate because of that failure to change. And that is just pulling your nose off to spite your face, going, because England's done something, we in Wales have to do something different, when at the core of every decision should be the benefit of the children and the benefit of communities of Wales.
Thank you very much. Aaron Kerry.
Thank you very much for your excuse me. Thank you very much for your question. I could talk all night on the education. I think we all could. I think to start with, education is a bit like healthcare. There'll never be enough money. They'll always be asking for more money because a lot of it gets eaten up in the red tape. Teachers having to spend most of the time doing paperwork instead of in the classroom. When I was at school, I don't remember really having LSAs and things like that there. It's great we've got them now, they really work hard, but a lot of the time they're taking up doing the work of the teachers, because the teachers are doing so much paperwork and filling in forms and things like that. I've got a few friends that are teachers, and they said the job's got harder over the last, say, 15, 20 years. And a lot of it's down to the curriculum is not quite fitting in with how people are living these days and children are being raised. I've spoke a couple of times previously. I think children should be should lead us along and show us what they want. Yes, you've got your reading, writing, and arithmetic. It's all important on the basic level, but a lot of children don't want to go down the academic route. Some want to go down the hands-on route. Most of the people I know that have gone down that route have actually done better off than the ones that didn't have the academic training. I think that needs to be nurtured from a younger age than 14 or 16. I think you've got to look and see how these children behave. You can pick up on how kids behave. The teachers can pick up on it. They want to get up and walk around. They want to do something physical and hands-on. Nurture it. Don't tell them to sit down. Don't put them in a box and say sit there. And I think a lot of that is what's affecting behaviour in schools as well. Is that's the kind of outburst the kids want to do. They've been told to sit there and stay still, and then they get ramped up then in the break time or lunchtime, and then they go into fighting and even attacking the teachers or swearing at teachers. Respect, it's all gone there. But there's no back and forth. It's, you're going to do this, you're going to do that, you're going to do this. And I think that's what needs to be fought against.
Thank you very much. And Anna Nicol, Plaid Cymru.
Sorry. Yeah, thank you very much for the question. And on appropriate funding, so Plaid Cymru does not believe that we get a fair deal on funding from the UK government, and we would be a much stronger voice to demand that we do. We also know that, as already been mentioned, we've had quarter of a century where we haven't had the additional costs of rural authorities reflected in the funding formula in Wales. So we will also look at reviewing that to get the resources that we need in rural areas into West Wales, Pembrokeshire and Ceredigion. Then on one of our key pledges is on childcare. So we would invest in 20 hours universal free childcare from 9 months old to 4 years old. So that would be the most generous childcare offer in the UK. It is expensive to do that, but we know that it works, and it can provide not just relief for families with a cost of living crisis, about 30,000 per child, and a boost to the economy by getting parents, enabling them to get back to work. But it also will support kind of that getting young people onto the best start of life with childcare. Numeracy and literacy levels are far too low in Wales. We'll introduce a plan to address that, and part of that needs to be growing the workforce in Wales. So we will, in the sort of schools and teachers in Wales. So another thing we'll do is by 2030, we will invest in that initial teacher training and build match what is happening in England, where there's incentives of £30,000 in those priority area subjects, double what there currently is in Wales. And finally, on the behavioural issue, well, safety in schools, there's lots of different angles on that, so I'm sure we can break that down. But one issue has been around behaviour and attendance, and we would want to look at introducing a kind of community wraparound service where schools work with youth services and others to support young people and address behavioural challenges.
Thank you very much. Before I go back to Neil for any supplementary comments, the Green Party, you were called jealous of success over the border. I want to give you the opportunity to respond to that.
Actually, didn't say that.
Oh, what, sorry, I misquoted you,
Yeah,
please.
sorry. What I said was it was a politics of envy with millionaires, and there are many, many very decent millionaires even in Pembrokeshire. We've got one.
Thank you very much. I'm going to ask Morgan to respond to that. Thank you for confirming.
Thank you. Yeah, there definitely are some good millionaires. There's the patriotic millionaires movement who are advocating for them to be taxed more. I think I'm not envious of wealth. I think wealth is fine so long as it is redistributed. What we don't want is wealth to be extracted from Wales, put into offshore bank accounts, and then donated back to people like Nigel Farage.
Thank you very much. It's coming up to 8:30 already. Time is pressing. We have one more question, and unfortunately, we are going to have to reduce your answer time to 1 minute 30. So I apologise for that. I'm saying it now so we don't end up with half the panel giving 2 minutes and then the remaining having that 1 minute 30. I won't have that on my conscience. We're looking now at the environment. And Wayne Murphy. Oh, sorry, Neil, I've missed you out completely. Do you have any supplementary comments?
Yes, I do, yeah. I'll be quick. We could be here all night. Aaron, you mentioned the behaviour and the lack of respect. I was a teacher for 23 years in secondary schools up in North Wales and in St Thomas Picton, but I took early retirement in the end. It is rampant. It is complete, utter lack of respect. You've got about top 10%, the great kids, you never have to shout at, all the rest of it. And then as you go down the scale, it is dreadful. How many of the people up here have actually been in a secondary school? I recommend you go for a week in November and be an LSA. I know, Alistair, you were a teacher. Well done. You want to go in there because we were talking to the people in the county hall and they would not believe what we said. And it's not just STP, it was the other schools. They thought we were playing week to see what's going on in reality. Mike and George, you're alluding to, let's go back to grammar schools and secondary moderns. Because as you say, George, there are people in secondary schools put into a hole and they don't want to be there. So they kick off. And they go down to your farm and be, oh, this is great. There you go. Literacy in Pisa. Why did that happen? How on earth did we become bottom of the pile? Nobody's got any answers. Part of it, I suspect, might be to do with home. When I was teaching up north, I used to see, I was the head of year 10, 11, and the education welfare officer used to go out. And she said, look, there's no books in these houses. The babies are in baby seats looking at a telly. And it has to start somewhere. If you can't start to read and write by the time you get to primary school, just of the basics, it's a hard slog then all the way up.
Some food for thought for the panel about how to get into the homes before they get into the school. Due to the time pressing issue, we're going to move straight on to the environment question. Wayne Murphy. Now is your chance.
Hi guys. Could you tell me what you will do to ensure the cleanliness of our beaches and waterways, and furthermore support industry while protecting the environment as a whole?
Anna Nicol, Plaid Cymru.
Yeah, thank you. A really important question. One of the things that Plaid Cymru want to do is to bring the powers over managing our waters into Wales, and so we have more control here. I live in Cardiff, so just opposite, and one of the where they're now kind of doing, which is a blue flag beach, but it's just down from where the sewage works have been kind of some of the worst in the UK, and there's been a massive campaign there that has pushed to clean up the river, work, and has forced a change in the sewage works now and a massive investment, but that's been from kind of community led change really and testing. So it's an absolute priority to clean up the rivers. We want to see better regulation of the rivers, and a better investment really in natural resources Wales. There can be better enforcement of that. As you say, it's not all about sewage, it's also industry. And what we need to be doing, we would have an action plan for nature as well, to work with industry as well, and looking at, so there's a potential with clean industries of the future, so that can build jobs, and as well as kind of having less pollution. So I think one of the reforms to TUC have said that with reforms, commitments around abolishing commitments around net zero, that could cost up to 40,000 jobs in Wales. So we really need to look at how we invest in jobs and industry, but in clean ways.
Thank you. Aaron Kerry.
Thank you for your question. Okay, the way to ensure the cleanliness of our waterways is to get the people that are responsible for it to own up and sort it out. Between, I'll say, Welsh Water as our local supplier here, they're constantly dumping sewage and other detritus into the waterways. I've seen it myself several times in the last 12 months. Quite local to me, I can go and take you there now and show you this is where it overflows, and their excuse is just, well, we've had a bit of a storm, so it's just come over. It's not that. It's not been maintained. It's not been invested in properly over the years. They've been keeping it for their, well, it's not for profit, but it's the money goes somewhere. Let's put it that way. So it's someone's profiting, and it's not us, the people. And the other thing with that is that the overseers of it, NRW, they are woefully inadequate, and I mean woefully inadequate. Any issues I've had as a councillor in Pembroke, they've either not bothered answering at all or turned up and said, oh, well, it should disappear. We had a couple of weeks ago, we had some odd, well, I think it was heating oil went into the local waterway there, and NRW were contacted, and their advice coming back to us was just leave it, it'll dissipate into the Castle Pond, and that's a triple SI area there. That was the response. They did send some people down after, and they were knocking on doors to look for where it was coming from. But by then it was far too late, and the local authority were left to handle the cleanup, unfortunately. It's absolutely disgusting. NRW need to up their game, and they need to be forced to do that by whoever is in power in the next Welsh Government.
Thank you very much. Morgan Phillips, Green Party.
Yeah, thanks, Wayne, for the question. There's 10 pages in our manifesto on food, nature and the environment, so I'll definitely encourage you to look at that. But thinking about beaches specifically, I grew up on Newquay Beach, really, and I spend a lot of time there now. I probably know every grain of sand. I think my son's going the same way, and it's so important that we look after it and enhance it. That these are the gifts that we get from nature. I think sometimes we talk about natural resources, Wales, and that's sort of framing nature as something that we can extract from and have. It's a resource for us to have, but actually we probably need to think about it as a gift. It should be called natural gifts to Wales, and actually think about it that way. I think it's really important that we protect our rivers. I think it's absolutely certain, and that links into the question around what we're going to do to support businesses. One of the things, obviously, one of the industries that affects the rivers the most is obviously the farming industry, and we think the sustainable farming scheme, it needs to be reviewed as it rolls out, and part of that is to ensure that farmers are rewarded for taking action to improve and enhance the environment as well as protect it. So we want to see that happen. We want to end destructive fishing practices to ensure that we're not getting all the litter that comes from the fishing industry, and to sort of ban the bottom trawling that we see in marine protected areas. We need to improve flood protection as well, because as climate change hits more and more, we're getting more and more floods, and they obviously cause a lot of damage to the environment as well. So we need to think about flood resilience and adaptation plans to ensure that our beaches are kept clean and pristine as they are. The Welsh economy, tourism is so important, especially to this part of Wales, and we really need to ensure that we look after it, not just protect it. We need to enhance it and make it better, make it more diverse and a great place for people to come and spend their time.
Thank you very much. Alistair Cameron, Liberal Democrats.
Yes, thank you. I've got a personal interest in this because I try to swim 3 times a week throughout the whole of the year with a group of other people as well off Saundersfoot. So I do want the seas to be clean. And unfortunately, every time we get these spells of heavy rainfall, we then get these warnings of pollution as waste goes into the sea. So as Liberal Democrats, what do we want to do? We want a ban on raw sewage dumping in our rivers and seas. We want to ban bonuses for water bosses until they actually deal with this and stop the discharges. We want to replace Ofwat with a new Welsh regulator that's got real powers to deal with this. We also wish to have a blue corridor programme that you see the blue flag scheme for beaches. We want a similar thing for rivers, streams and lakes to ensure that we do have healthy water. And we also want to set meaningful and binding targets to stop the decline in our natural environment and to double nature by 2050. You mentioned employment as well, and obviously we do want to maintain jobs, but but we do need to have high environmental standards. There's no doubt about that. I mean, it's been mentioned earlier, we rely on tourism in this area, and it's in nobody's interest to allow pollution to continue. And we'll certainly we'll work with industry for this, but we will also work with the farming community to to improve the standard in our rivers. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, George Chadsey.
So when it comes to polluting rivers in particular, I think farmers tend to cop a lot of the blame, and maybe rightly so. But we can't expect people to farm on a calendar. It's ridiculous that you're not allowed to spread on your fields up to a certain date, no matter what the weather is. And then once that day passes, you can fill your boots, you can do whatever you want. So I think that's something that really needs to be addressed and looked at. If we're really going to sort of get into it. So the big river going through the Tavy Valley where I'm from, the River Tavy, it's really embarrassing that it came out on the top of this a chart they call the top of the poops, and it came out top. There's the highest polluted river as far as having sewage dumped into it for a number of hours over a year, and that's really embarrassing. Like Alice said, my mother-in-law, she's part of the Cardigan Blue Tits, and they go swimming, in the sea all year round. And we protect them. My son, he loves going to the beach with his mummy, and that's really brings it home. Now it's been alluded to by Aaron as well, and National Resource Wales, they are a waste of time. Quite frankly, they're a toothless tiger. They do nothing. I've handed them a smoking gun before, and they said, I'm going to look into it. And then 6 weeks later, they said, my bosses aren't really interested in that right now. So that's what we really needed, someone to hold these accountable.
Thank you very much. Michael Allen, Reform.
I think the people at home are very interested in this, and also most people at home are actually very green-minded these days. I certainly am. I use razors that is for months on end, disposable razors, and I'm always looking for ways to reduce my personal pollution. But at the same time, exporting industry and jobs for carbon madness, this carbon zero madness is crazy. We're exporting our jobs and the industrial processes to countries who have standards far lower than ours, and then importing the products back in. So that under a reform government, that will end. The second thing is that I'm a person who's gone into a river to swim the D Mile, which starts in Wales and ends in England, and came out with a virus-like illness. So I know what river pollution is all about. Let me tell you, that needs to stop as well. But the idea that it's big industry doing that shows a lack of understanding. As the chair of the Pembrokeshire Lido, I understand the most difficult challenge we have of bringing a new 50-metre pool to Pembrokeshire and to Ceredigion, to West Wales. Biggest challenge we have is not building the thing, it's putting the water, clean water that's been through the pool back into Aberdaugleddau. So from our point of view, we know that the major industries on the harbour, for example, they are very highly controlled. The biggest problem we've got, which has been created by your current government, Plaid and Labour, is what actually in rivers is what the farmers have to do because of the crazy situation they have, where they've got to put slurry onto the land in heavy rain, and it washes into the rivers, so they can't win either way. And that is under the current government's regulations.
Can I just clarify a point? You keep referencing Labour and Plaid government. Can you just confirm what you mean by that?
Well, in the last three of the four governments that have run Wales have been Plaid Labour coalition.
There's only been one coalition. Correct, yeah. So I want to make clear the Labour Plaid coalition has only happened once in recent times. Anna, please remind me of the dates. I'm sure you're more favoured with it than I am. But but there isn't currently a coalition between Labour and Plaid currently. I want to make that clear for those.
But they did sign off each other's budget, didn't they?
Four out of the line. Four out of five.
It's a purposeful misinformation, basically. I hope people can go away and look at themselves. It's not the case. It's been
look at the budget as well.
Gwyn Evans, Gwlad.
Yeah, and it's been Labour Lib Dem as well, hasn't it? just to be clear on it. On the farm, I'm farming organically, so I don't put any slurry on it. Other people have to. And it's been mentioned, I think we're on the farming end of the table here, and we take the hit, and it is slurry going in when the government says when you're supposed to do it. The second part is Dŵr Cymru is legally allowed to dump untreated sewage into the river. They also illegally dump it into the river. There is no difference. The river doesn't know any difference between the two things. The fish don't know the difference between the two things. And the main thing is they then get a fine. And then the next bill that comes through includes the fine and we pay for it. Now, if the bonus of the boss went and his money went to half, I think things might change. And that would be a good start. The second part of that story is that if I want to have a Pelton wheel and I try to get it to produce electricity for the farm and export it to my neighbours, they charge me to borrow the water, turn the wheel and put it back clean into the river. But they're allowed to legally dump it in there. There's something very wrong. And my feeling, the overall feeling is people in Cardiff, in the Senedd, they don't understand the rural countryside. And as for NRW, as far as I'm concerned, like you, not really working, I think, as the NRW.
Thank you very much. Conservatives, Samuel Kitts.
Thank you, Wayne. A few years ago, I wrote an article for the Institute of Welsh Affairs around water pollution and the lack of coherent policy on it, because you have water company policy over here, and you have agricultural pollution policy over here, and the two conflict with each other. And we've heard reference to the NVZ regulations, the Control of Agricultural Pollution Regulations, which is a farming by calendar approach. When there's a technological advancement being created at Gelli Aur College in Carmarthenshire called Project Slurry, which is app-based, which tells you the soil temperature, the compaction level of the soil, the temperature, the rainfall, and it gives you a proactive real-time data on when you can spread to the benefit of the soil, so the nutrients that are in the slurry are used in the soil and not washed into the waterway. At the same time, you've got Welsh Water and CSO discharges, and they're only meant to be used under increased rainfall or heavy rainfall, where the sewage is to prevent backup in the system. But we know that's not happening, and the very few monitoring of CSOs to understand exactly when they're discharging. Alistair mentioned the freshwater swimming he does in Saundersfoot, or the sea swimming. I met with them, the numbnuts, and you've got the blue tits, and Saundersfoot have got the numbnuts.
I didn't want to mention that.
I thought, why not? But it's really important that there's people out there willing to put their hand up and say, look, this isn't right what's happening here. When these big organisations are hiding behind not-for-profit, when someone's certainly profiting through bonuses, and it's communities who are losing out with the benefit of clean water and good safe swimming areas. So that's on one point, because you mentioned more broadly the environment, enhanced air quality monitoring. That's something that we would look to introduce, because air pollution is something that's got worse over the years in the United Kingdom and in Wales.
Thank you very much. And finally, Mark Tierney, Labour.
Yeah, thank you very much, Wayne. And this is a really hot topic, isn't it, in Pembrokeshire at the moment. Look, you know, we've heard a lot of, let's blame the regulator, let's blame the government, let's blame the water companies. Yes, there is shared responsibility across all of those organisations to get this right, because we can't allow what is happening to continue much longer. I've met with the Cleddau project here in Pembrokeshire. They do a fantastic job. They are raising the flag for the issues that our waterways are facing. And it's not just the quality of the water running through the waterways, it's also the issues that affect the biodiversity within the waterways, and then the biodiversity on land as well. And there are some parts of the River Cleddau in Pembrokeshire where there is very little thriving biodiversity, and that must change. Things have to change going forward, and we've got the legislation in Wales now that we can do it. We've brought in various environmental acts in Wales. We're tackling air pollution, tackling air quality as well, and the waterways are next. And with Welsh Labour, if we form the next government, we will be introducing a clean water bill for Wales, so that we've got a new water regulator that is set up, and funding to make sure that we crack down on those who are responsible for river pollution as well. We want to have marine conservation zones too, so that we're using things like seaweed and seagrass habitats to make sure that our beaches and seas are thriving. as well. And the issue around, it's not just, when it's heavy rain that causes problems with the rivers, it's the fact that there is now so much phosphate and nitrates in our soil, the soil can't take any more. So it's not a flash in the pan issue, this is an issue that has built up over time.
Thank you very much. Wayne, do you have any supplementary comments you want to make, having heard all the people here at this table?
In Pembrokeshire, I grew up here, so I'm just noticing there's a higher incidence of warnings on beaches for sewage outlets, and I'm up and down the river regularly picking up litter, and I'm just noticing the big stink as I'm walking through the Clydau, which has just been declining for decades now. It's just not in a good shape at all.
Yeah.
And I just think the lack of investment from the Welsh Water and the amount of houses that have been built, and it's just, it's not catching up with it really, is it? The investment into the infrastructure, and it's getting to a tipping point.
Absolutely agree.
Thank you very much. It's 8:45, and I'm very conscious that I would like every candidate at this table to have their closing remarks, the why should you vote for our party question. We may have to look at 30 seconds for that. And also, an apology to those in the room actually, but it's actually testament to every single member at this table that we're having to bring it to the brink of the time. They've all made the effort to travel here today to present what I'm going to call the highlights of their manifesto, of their pledges to you, the residents of Ceredigion and Penfro. Please do your research, look at their manifestos, find which party aligns with your views, whilst also taking into account the personalities that you have in front of you. You won't be voting for an individual, you'll be voting for a party, albeit the names will be in the box for you to sign your X next to them. So we're not going to have time to come to the floor as I had hoped and desired. So we are going to move on to these closing remarks by those here at the table to give us the answer to the question, why should you vote for our party or me as an independent candidate? It is going to be around about the 30-second mark, so a real highlight. We've already heard some of your views, and we're going to start with George Chadsey.
Okay, well, yeah, I won't take long. You've heard from all the parties tonight, it's all polished, well rehearsed, and they're backed by big systems. But ask yourself this, are they actually getting better? They've had long enough to try and crack it now. So I'm going to reiterate, I'm not trying to make a career in Cardiff Bay. I'm trying to solidify things right here in Cardigan Bay. And I'm looking for common sense policies over party ideologies. So if that sounds like something that you can get behind and support, I'd really appreciate your vote on Thursday. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mark Tierney, Labour.
You're being told that this election is a two-horse race between two nationalist parties, but we know that national polls don't easily translate it to West Wales. The new voting system is proportional. The best way to hold both Plaid and Reform to account here is to vote Eluned Morgan and Welsh Labour, a vote that secures free prescriptions, planned pay rises for public sector workers, and no increase in income tax. Major investment into our NHS, guaranteed urgent appointments and shorter waiting times. Welsh Labour has a costed, credible and deliverable plan. If you value all these things, vote for them, vote Welsh Labour, get Welsh Labour in Ceredigion Penfro on May the 7th.
Thank you very much. Conservative, Sam Kitts.
Thank you, and thank you everybody for participating this evening. Pembrokeshire's home, and I want the best for my home. And on the 7th of May, your vote really does count under this new system. For 20% of the vote, 1 in 5 vote Welsh Conservatives, then both Paul Davies and myself will be re-elected to the Senedd on a strong track record of delivery and standing up for our communities. In this new system, in a 96-seat Welsh Parliament, it is vital that Pembrokeshire's voice is not lost in this new system. And that's why I think the integrity, the delivery and the sleeves rolled up mentality that you'll get from both Paul and myself is a reason to vote Welsh Conservative to help us get that 20% on the 7th of May. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you. Aaron Kerry.
Thank you. I'll try and be as quick as I can. I will fight for practical solutions. I think you probably all listened to all of us tonight and you thought, well, I agree with Mark. I don't agree with Mark on that thing. I agree with George. If you vote for independent, vote for myself or even George, whoever, we'll fight for you. Not for anything. We're not being whipped into anything. We will fight for what's right for you. I think many, if not all of us, are probably quite tired of the mudslinging between the parties at the moment. I know when I've been out in the town speaking to people, that is what they're fed up of. A lot of them guys have lost interest in politics because of how everyone's acting with each other. Try and work with each other. Put yourselves up. Don't put someone else down. Okay, that's just advice for myself. So a vote for me is a vote for someone who'll be close to the community, who'll listen, act, and bring people together to get things done. I ask for support so we can make our voices heard here in West Wales, so we can thrive not just for today, but for generations to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anna Nicol.
Thank you. Yep. Only Plaid Cymru offers new leadership for Wales that brings hope and a credible plan to put Wales on a new path towards fairness and prosperity. Labour have had their day. They're a distant third in the polls. It's now a straight fight between Plaid Cymru and Reform. The choice between two futures facing Wales and Pembrokeshire could not be starker. Reform is causing anxiety and unease in our communities, a party ruled from London, marred by chaos and self-interest and scandal. Plaid Cymru will work with others who value decency, credibility and compassion. If you want new leadership for a hopeful future, a party that will stand up for Wales and stop reform, vote Plaid Cymru on 7th of May.
Thank you very much. Morgan Phillips, Green Party.
Thanks. Yeah, just to reiterate again that it's not a two-horse race. The fight for the 5th and 6th seats here in Ceredigion and Penfro is a fierce one. It could go in any direction. We have a fantastic lead candidate, Amy Nicholas, who lives in St Dogmell, who knows Pembrokeshire really, really well. I think, obviously, we wouldn't work in coalition with Reform, but we would consider working with Plaid. And I think Wales is hungry for a new type of politics. And if the Green Party can get a big turnout, if we can get 10 or 11 Senedd members, which we think is possible looking at the polls, and we'll be able to work alongside Plaid Cymru, and that would avoid them having to work with Labour, which might not bring the sort of new politics that people are looking for. The Green Party is going to bring holistic thinking to the Senedd. Think about how health, education, transport, farming are all linked together and how those policies need to support each other. And obviously, we will prioritise looking after nature, and Wales is one of the most beautiful countries in the world, and we want it to become more beautiful.
Thank you very much. Liberal Democrats, Alistair Cameron.
Yes, thank you very much. What we want to do is to put more money into social care, and we would do that if necessary by putting income tax up by 1 penny in the pound. That will also help our National Health Service. We want to support our economy, and for instance, we would enable trade with the European Union because the restrictions have been so damaging, particularly here in Pembrokeshire. We want to preserve our beautiful environment, our nature and our rivers and our seas, what makes Pembrokeshire so attractive. I disagree with what the Reform candidate said earlier, because he said climate change would damage jobs. Tackling climate change would damage jobs. But actually in Pembrokeshire, if you develop floating offshore wind turbines and green hydrogen, you'll actually create jobs, and there'll be skilled jobs that people will be able to do. We've got, as has been said earlier, this proportional representation voting system. And that means if you vote for Liberal Democrat, you can and you will get a Liberal Democrat Senate member to represent and serve this area. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you very much. And Michael Allen, Reform.
Next Thursday, you have the opportunity to create seismic change in Wales. For too long, the same old people have been in charge, and think about the standards of your economy, your hospitals, and your schools. Enough is enough. With a Reform government, we will look into every pound spent at the NHS, use forensic accounting, and get that budget under control. We will make overpaid executives accountable for success, or they will go. And we will also make sure that the people on the front line dictate how the hospitals are actually run. We will end the war on motorists in Wales, and we will also remember that politicians are there to serve the people. Most of the people of the 96 have come into politics for the first time. We are conviction politicians. This Thursday, vote for real change, vote for Reform.
Thank you. And Gwyn Evans, Gwlad.
Diolch yn fawr. This election has introduced 36 more MSs, and we've got to remember they were mainly for scrutiny. And that is something I've gained a reputation for in Ceredigion County Council, asking all the wrong questions, but at the right time. I believe I'm going to have the votes of the top 10 in the council who want me to go to Cardiff to get out of their hair. From our business background, we understand that sending an email is not doing the job. We follow it through to the end. On the farm, if I don't do the job, who will? I'd like to take this opportunity to ask you for your vote. We are extremely grateful for every single one. I'm on the extreme right here on the table, and extreme left if you look at it. So Gwlad is not right or left, but to do what's right for Wales. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you very much. And we are very near the end of our programme here this evening. Just want to reiterate my thanks for all of these candidates for coming down. Thank you so much for your time, and for our audience here, anyone listening at home, watching us on our social media profiles, I really appreciate it. Is there anyone on the floor that has a burning desire to have a comment or one last question before we hand over to the jazz box? Your hand was up first, sir. So Kim is on his way to you. Please wait for the microphone so we can all hear you.
Next week, we're likely to end up with a hung parliament. I want to know what assurances you're going to give us that you will work together effectively, honestly, with integrity and tolerance for one another and compromise.
20 seconds to answer. We're just going to go down the table.
Yeah, Green Party has co-production and co-working as absolute core. We fully believe in working together with people and finding the common ground, and we share a lot of the same values certainly as Plaid Cymru, and we hope to work with them and support them to go further with environmental commitments.
Yes, Liberal Democrats, we do have a tradition of working with other parties for the good of everything. I have to say, though, we would not work with Reform, and we would not work with the Conservative Party either. I have to make that clear. And the other thing is, if we go with the other parties, we do not support spending money on Welsh independence. I think you can solve the problems in Wales, in the current system. Thank you.
My track record as a Senedd member over the last 5 years, having chaired cross-party groups, having worked cross-party on committees with the Liberal Democrats, with Plaid Cymru members, with Labour members, at the forefront has always been what's best for Pembrokeshire and the communities that I've been elected to represent. That always comes first and foremost. Any vote for the Welsh Conservatives, the only deal that we're willing to do at the moment is with the people of Wales. They come first.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so all of the Plaid Cymru candidates on the ballot paper here live in this constituency and are part of the communities here, using the services here. And we are Plaid Cymru is only accountable to people in Wales, and we'll be accountable to you as citizens. So we'll do what we need to do within our values to ensure that basically people in Ceredigion and Pembrokeshire come first.
Thank you.
I would just say that my number one priority is to serve the people of Pembrokeshire and Ceredigion, whether they be English speaking, south of Lanska line, or Welsh speaking, they get the same level of support, okay? We'll fight civilly as a Christian person. I don't believe in fighting with people for the sake of it, but I do believe in fighting for the things that matter to Wales.
Thank you.
Welsh Labour believes in fairness and equality, and we have a set of values, and we would always work with parties who share those values. And in the past, we've been berated for it tonight, by the way, but in the past we have had to do deals with the Lib Dems and with Plaid in order to deliver for the people of Wales.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Personally, I will work with anybody as long as I think that what they're doing is the right thing for the people of the constituency. I think the same as you've got to represent people that haven't voted for you as well. You just got to, say man up and work with people. That's it. I think we've all worked with people before we haven't wanted to work with at some point in time. You just get on and do the job and make sure that you get the best outcome for everybody. Thank you.
We're a relatively new party, and we don't have the long history that others have to stick to. We can react to circumstances fairly quickly. That's not flip-flop, that's being practical. And if it's being practical to work with another party, then we do so. It makes sense. We've got to come to a decision, and we're given the opportunity of 96 people to come to some sensible decisions that are good for Wales, not for us personally. I'm not in it for the money. I'm in it to do the job.
Thank you.
Yeah, so obviously as an independent candidate, independent doesn't mean that I'm going to be on my own. And I'd be willing to work with anyone. I think anyone that's willing to say something as childish as I'm not going to work with Reform, they really need to swallow their pride. This is bigger than parties. This is a country. And I think you need to take a good long look at yourselves in the mirror if you're going to turn down good help. A good idea is a good idea regardless of where it comes from. I don't care what you think. It's childish, and we don't need that in government.
And that brings us to an end of tonight's Senedd Election Hustings here on Pure West Radio at the Queen's Hall in Narberth. My thanks to all of our candidates for engaging with the questions and for setting out clearly why they believe they deserve your vote, even if it might have been the highlights. And thank you to our audience here this evening and to you at home for listening and being part of this important conversation. Whatever your views, whatever your political colour, the most important message is this: use your vote on May the 7th. This election marks an important change in how representatives are chosen for the Senedd, and with the new, more proportional voting system, your vote has a stronger voice in shaping the outcome. By electing multiple representatives across larger areas, the system is designed to better reflect how communities vote as a whole, meaning more voices, more perspectives, and a broader representation of Wales. It makes participation more powerful, and it makes being heard more achievable. So make sure you're registered, well, make sure you've got your postal vote sent off, make sure you know how to vote, where your polling station is, and most importantly, make sure you take part. Tonight, you have heard from your candidates, and on Monday evening, we'll be airing a leaders debate as recorded by our Wales Community Radio Network partners, Bro Radio. This will be available to listen back to on our catch-up after the broadcast on Tuesday morning. The next edition of Pure Politics will be on Sunday, the 24th of May, just in time to introduce you to our elected representatives in the Senedd. From all of us here at Pure West Radio and the Queen's Hall in Narberth, thank you for listening, and thank you once again to our candidates. The Jazz Box with Martin Oughton is up next. Diolch yn fawr iawn.